My best bets for week 5 in the NFL, as we're only looking at 2 games in this Sunday slate. We're going to take a look at the Baltimore Ravens, who are traveling to the Cincinnati Bengals for an AFC North matchup. And then we're going to look at Sunday Night Football between the Pittsburgh Steelers hosting the Dallas Cowboys in a throwback rival matchup between two of the most storied franchises in the NFL. And if you just found this page, welcome. My name is Matthew King, and this is a channel where you get all of my NFL bets completely free and first every single week. Not on Twitter, not on TikTok, only on YouTube. You get my bets first and always free. And if you like some of these insights that I get from hours of research, and if you like to tail some of my bets, make sure to hit that subscribe and like button. That is the way that you can support me. And also let me know in the comments if you're going to tail or fade these picks. And before we get started, this is just your friendly reminder that this YouTube channel is sponsored by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticket app that takes the confusion out of buying tickets. They rank on a 0 to 10 score on each ticket to know if you're getting a good or a bad deal. Green means good, red means bad, obviously. Plus, my viewers get $20 off their first ticket purchase with my code YAPMATT. That's YAPMATT. Click the link in the description to download the app, and remember code YAPMATT, YAPMATT. It's also on the screen down here below when you check out. Let's start with the Ravens versus Bengals in this AFC North matchup. I have one pick, and I also have 2 player props in this game, and I am loving this matchup. Let's start with the pick. The Baltimore Ravens are road favorites at -2.5, and it really hasn't moved all week. I know everyone might try to say I'm biased because I'm a Ravens fan, but there is no one else watching their film, watching this team more than I am. So I take my fan bias out of it when I am betting this team, and I just look at it from a football perspective, and I watch them more than any other team. So why would I not bet on them if I feel good about the matchup? To get started, here are some trends between these two teams that I always look at first before I start betting. I got these from Action Network. No, this is not sponsored, but I got these from their website. The Ravens this season are 2-2 against the spread, 1-1 against the spread on the road, and 2-1 against the spread as favorites. The Bengals this season are 2-2 against the spread, 0-2 against the spread at home, which is really surprising, and 1-0 as underdogs. Both of these teams are coming into this game basically 100% healthy. I know Trey Hendrickson, there was a little bit of an issue with like his arm or his elbow, but he seems good to go. I personally think that this matchup is a nightmare for the Cincinnati Bengals, especially with how their defense is playing. The Bengals defense is ranked 28th in EPA per rush with Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, and Justice Hill coming into town. They rank 25th in EPA per pass, where quarterbacks like Jaden Daniels and Andy Dalton had their way against this defense. The Ravens have finally found their identity on offense. They could not figure out their identity through the first 2 weeks against the Chiefs and the Raiders, and that's why they started 0-2. But now, winning the past 2 games, you can see what this offense's identity is. The Ravens offense, even after those bad first 2 weeks, ranks 3rd in EPA per play, 5th in EPA per pass, and 2nd in EPA per rush. Their identity is running the football with Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson and opening up the passing game with play action and quick passing. It also helps that the Ravens offensive line has played really well these past 2 weeks compared to the first 2 weeks, which I'm sure the Cincinnati Bengals hate to see when they rank 29th in pressure rate and total pressures on defense. So it's going to be hard to get to Lamar Jackson with this offensive line playing the way that it is. On the flip side, the Bengals offense is playing very well and starting to find their groove. They definitely have not been the issue as to why they have a 1-3 start. The Bengals offense ranks 7th in EPA per play, 7th in EPA per pass, and 10th in EPA per rush. Everyone seems to be scared to bet the Ravens against the Bengals because of their pass defense, which ranks only 16th in EPA per pass. But the Ravens are in a new defensive offensive scheme with Zach Orr. It was going to take them a couple weeks to figure it out. It was the same thing with Mike Macdonald when he first got to Baltimore, and now Zach Orr's defense is looking more and more like a Mike Macdonald defense. And he's really starting to find his groove as a play caller, especially in the first half against the Cowboys and the entire game against the Buffalo Bills. He's giving a ton of nickel and dime looks. The dime look gave a lot of issues to Josh Allen last week, and I expect them to run even more of it against the Bengals. What the dime defense looks like is, to keep it simple, is 6 DBs on the field at once. This opens them up to having more coverage guys on the field and also having way more versatility. It can help with confusing an offense of what's either coming with a blitz look when you have Kyle Hamilton in the dime linebacker role, or you can bring a blitz with a corner and drop Kyle Hamilton. There's a lot that the Ravens can do in this dime look. This gives the Ravens more advantage against Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, as they have enough cover guys to help the corners on the back end. And with the matchups, I think they run it a ton against them, especially with how their run defense is playing. They can focus more on Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. I think the Ravens have found their identity on offense and on defense after 4 weeks. The first 2 weeks, we really didn't know who they were, but now we know who they are. They love to run the football, and they are playing much better, hard-nosed defense that we know the Ravens to be. I love the Ravens at -2.5. I personally think that it should be at 3. I think it might move that way, but I know a lot of the public is going to be on Cincinnati or the over, because they expect a ton of scoring and they expect Cincinnati to be able to have their way with this Baltimore defense. I would lean the under, because I think the Ravens are going to take the ball away from Joe Burrow's hands and run the ball more efficiently and not really pass. I would expect maybe under 20 passes in this game, if you like to bet that as well for a Lamar Jackson prop. But those are my leans, but I absolutely love the Ravens at -2.5. The 2 props that I have in this game, I'm sure you can guess what they are, but I'm looking at the Ravens running backs. Derrick Henry's line is set at 84.5 rushing yards. Right now, you can only get that on DraftKings or BetMGM. It is not up on FanDuel, which is kind of a good sign to me, because they don't know what to put Derrick Henry's line at just yet. He has hit this line, 84.5 rushing yards, in 3 of his 4 games this year. The Bengals defense ranks 28th versus design runs, 28th in efficiency versus the run, and 31st versus under center and outside the tackles. To keep it simple, it's a mismatch. Derrick Henry might actually drop 150 yards on this defense. I'm taking his over 84.5 yards. I think the Ravens keep their identity by running the football with Derrick Henry, and they keep it going and opening up the pass game. I love Derrick Henry over. Now, we're going to take the other running back for the Ravens as well. You might not like combining both into 2 separate bets, but I love Justice Hill's line. He has been very important for this offense. He was a big, I would say a huge reason why the Ravens beat the Buffalo Bills this past week. If you combine all of those stats that I said about Derrick Henry, you can just apply those to Justice Hill as well. His line is set at only 13.5 rushing yards. To me, that's simply way too low for a running back that comes onto the field pretty often to take the workload off of Derrick Henry. He's hit this number in 3 of 4 games this year, same as Derrick Henry, and 8 of his last 9 games on the road. I think the Ravens play really good defense, and they run all over this Cincinnati Bengals defense. So to recap, the Ravens versus Bengals, Ravens -2.5 is one bet. Derrick Henry over 84.5 rushing yards is a second bet, and the third bet is Justice Hill over 13.5 rushing yards. I do not parlay anything. Any of my bets, if it's the same game, do not parlay anything. If you want to make consistent money over time, you always take straight bets. Just always remember that. So don't get mad at me if you go and parlay this and it doesn't hit somehow. And let's turn to my final play of the day. So I'm only going to have 4 plays on Sunday in 2 games. It's in this Pittsburgh Steelers versus Dallas Cowboys Sunday night football game. The Pittsburgh Steelers are home favorites with a 2.5 point spread. I personally think that this is going to be a heavy bet on the Dallas Cowboys from the public because, one, they've had more rest. They played on Thursday night last week, and Pittsburgh is going to fall off. A lot of the public thinks that Pittsburgh is going to fall off. They're not really a 3-1 team, but I do not think that's going to happen because of the Dallas Cowboys. The Steelers rank 6th in EPA per rush thanks to Justin Fields, Najee Harris, and Cordell Patterson. The Dallas Cowboys run defense is still really bad, ranking 31st in EPA per rush. Now, don't get it twisted. I know people are going to look at the Giants game and said they had a pretty decent game stopping the run, but the Giants are one of the worst teams in the NFL running the football. It was a perfect matchup for Dallas to go against the Giants after they got ran over by the Baltimore Ravens, and they're probably going to miss maybe even Micah Parsons. He's hurt, and DeMarcus Lawrence is out too. So I personally expect the Pittsburgh Steelers to run the ball very efficiently. They have too many guys with Justin Fields, Najee Harris, and Cordell Patterson to not run the football 30 plus times with these guys. And we also saw how Lamar Jackson played against the Dallas Cowboys. Now the Pittsburgh Steelers with Justin Fields get to go against the same Dallas Cowboys defense who's hurt and not playing that well. This is a much tougher matchup defensively for the Dallas Cowboys. We saw how Lamar Jackson tore up the ground game against the Dallas Cowboys, and now they have to go against Justin Fields. At home, under the lights in Pittsburgh, which is already a very, very tough environment to play in, and the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off a pretty bad loss against the Indianapolis Colts. I expect them to bounce back in this game. Combine that with Pittsburgh's defensive rankings, 6th in EPA per play on defense. The Cowboys have no running game. Brandon Cooks is out. He's out for probably a couple weeks. And Pittsburgh is a very, very good run defense. Not as good in the pass game, but very good against the run. They'll make them one-dimensional. Dak Prescott is probably going to throw the ball 45 plus times. I think this line should be at 3.5 with Pittsburgh being at home. I feel like we are getting gifted with that 1-point difference. I love Pittsburgh at this spot at home after a tough loss. I think everybody's going to be on Dallas. They all don't believe in Pittsburgh, but to say the least, Pittsburgh's defense is probably the best in the NFL, and the Cowboys have no running game. They're missing their number 2 wide receiver. They just don't have enough weapons. I think the Colts have more weapons than the Dallas Cowboys do, and I think it was kind of a mismatch for Pittsburgh there, especially with Joe Flacco coming into the game, who is generally just a drop back and throw quarterback. He was very accurate, and I just do not see Dallas doing that just because they do not have the same amount of weapons as the Colts. I really love Pittsburgh at -2.5. I would get it early. I think it's going to go up to -3.5. Thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back next week for Thursday Night Football. If I decide to bet on anything for Monday Night Football or anything else on Sunday, sometimes I do late bets. If I really like something late or something switches, make sure to follow my Twitter, which is above right here. And you guys can get all of my bets, my late bets, but all my bets that I truly love and I get early are always going to be on YouTube. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, that like button, and leave a comment, and that's how you can support me, and let's win.